Hi and welcome to another episode of Wing It Builds. I am currently in my very hot workshop. It's been roasting today and I'm going to sweat my way through this one. So it'll be half the weight I was when I started, which is a good thing because I'm putting on a bit of poundage. Anyway, enough of that. Today I'm going to continue with my 550 rebuild. I've got the bottom ended parts and I'm waiting on a part for that. I'm not sure if this video will come out after I show you that, but it's irrelevant really. What I'm going to do today is hone my cylinders. The reason for doing that is I've got new pistons for them, and the reason I bought new pistons is because the previous one had a crack in them, and you don't want this piston that's going up and down at thousands of revs to break off and throw a bit into your engine, because your whole engine could go. So I bought a new set of pistons and piston rings. And when you do have piston rings, you have to bed them in. They have to bed into the cylinders. So you have to give them a good surface to do that. And I'll talk you through that as I show you. So let's go on. So here's my setup here. I have my cylinders in my vise here. And it's really solid, so it's not going anywhere. And then here is my honer. Now my honer is this sprung 3-armed contraption that has these grinding stones on it. It's basically like sharpening stones for knives, but really fine, beautiful, and they're very flat. So if your piston does have, if your cylinder has dips in it, these will flatten them out. You can get ones with balls on them, and I don't like them because they tend to copy the shape of your cylinder. So if your cylinder does have uneven wearing up and down from top to bottom, then the balls will actually just fit in there and grind the whole thing, whereas these, because they're a straight line, should take that out, or at least take a lot of it out. So that goes in here, and then I'll spin this on my drill. What I'll do before I do that is I'll bring you in and I'll show you the surfaces of these cylinders so you can see what is wrong with them, and I'll explain what's wrong with them. So here I am tightening on these cylinders. Now if I zoom back and forward, you can see the surface of these cylinders. I'll bring this light up so you can see the markings that's on that cylinder. Now there's quite obvious scoring that goes straight up and down, so you can see these scores. Now that's the direction that the pistons go in. You're going to expect that because the pistons are going up and down in here, and I've been running velocity stacks instead of pods or air filters, so that's part of the reason why I think I'm now going to put extra filters on my velocity stacks, because bits are getting into these cylinders, you can tell, which is basically turning your pistons into little sanding machines or grinding machines. But this is not the pattern that you want on your cylinders, and also it's quite shiny, so there's not much there to hold the oil. But I'm changing the piston rings, and I need the piston rings to bed in. Now what I need in these cylinders is almost a cross hatch. So like 30 to 45 degree lines coming this way and the other way. So, and it should be all the way around. And how we do that is push this honer in and out the cylinder. And that should do the trick for us. And I might show you a little diagram of that now. So it's all very well knowing how to do something, but I always feel you should know why you're doing it. So here's a cylinder with the piston and the piston rings moving up and down. So if I take the piston out of the equation, you can see the rings moving up and down. And now if I put the crosshatch in and take all the crosshatch shapes out bar one, you can see that the actual line of that crosshatch is sliding across the face of these piston rings. And what that does over time is that little groove will slowly grind away these piston rings to sit perfectly within the cylinder. And that's the whole reason we do it. Even though one of the piston rings is designed to scrape the oil down, this does, the little crosshatch shape that you get on here will hold a little bit more oil. And obviously you can see that there's a lot of carbon here from where the combustion happens in the chamber, and I can feel that with my finger. So that all has to come off as well, and with the honer that'll take that right off, as well as give me a surface to bed in my new piston rings. And I'm actually going to use power steering fluid for this. I'm going to soak the stones because they're porous, so you want to get some of this fluid in there, and that stops all the metal that we're grinding off of here from sticking in the stones, and then making these stones effectively polish these cylinders rather than make a shape in them. So I'm going to put some in the cylinders and some on the stones. Just clean it with some kitchen towel to start with. You want to try and get these as clean as possible really. You don't want to be starting to spin lots of bits of either metal shavings or whatever round about these cylinders. You just create a problem rather than solve one. Again, if we look at this, it's there and then it just disappears. But it will come out with the centrifugal force. So the reason I'm using power steering fluid is basically because of gathered information from all sorts of sources. Some people use oil, which other people like really avidly tell you not to use oil. But the idea is just simply to keep the stones free of the residue you're taking off the inside of the barrels. And this stuff works fine. So here we go. Here I have my weapon. And this is just at the very, I really got a honer that's too big for these. Well, it's not too big, but these are 58mm cylinders, and this is from 51 to 122mm. So we only just made it, but it will do the same job. And let's go for it really. So these grinding blocks are on a pivot. If you come too far back, you start making a bevel on the top of your barrel, and you do not want that. Okay, that's starting to get there. I'm going to carry on with this. I'll do all 4 cylinders and then I'll bring in, I'll show you the after. So if I get this light in the right place, you can start to see that cross hatching on this cylinder. There's still a little line here of some carbon foliage and a few scuffs. So I'm going to go over these again. So now that I've honed them, I've obviously taken some material off the inside of these cylinders. And you can check them with a micrometer to see the diameter of these barrels now. But I don't have a micrometer and they're well pricey. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to use my new piston rings and put a piston ring in this cylinder and then measure the gap. Anyway, so here's the piston ring here. So you can see it has a gap, and when it's in here it's compressed. And depending on what gap is left in between this little space here is depending on whether it's within tolerance. So I'm going to put this piston ring inside my piston. In fact, first of all I'm going to put a little bit of lube on it. Now this is the top piston ring, and I know that because it's got a little bevel on it, which you can see if you put a magnifying glass on it, but I can feel it and I can see it. So let's get this in the cylinder. And I'll use the new piston to push it down. So get it very even. Okay. So now that my ring's in, I can use my feeler gauge and put it in the little gap. I'll bring the camera in closer so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I measured this gap here and it's 0.30 of a millimeter. And I checked my manual and the tolerance is up to 0.35 of a standard piston. So I am only just within tolerance. Yeah, so that is lucky. Only just lucky, otherwise I'd have to get these rebored or find some other cylinders. So yeah, I'll take that. So there we go. That is me honed and gap checked my piston rings in my cylinders for the CB550. That's a scary process. When I was checking that gap in the piston ring, I was sure that it was too big, but it's within tolerance, so I'm well happy with that. Yeah, another one, wing it builds at home in my garage, sweating. Till the next time.